Hello, everybody. Tyler Onstott with On the Sports Clock, and wanted to do a special introduction of my next guest. If you're from Southwest Missouri, he doesn't need an introduction. Or if you follow college baseball for that matter, this man doesn't need an introduction. I'm just going to run through some of his stats. 42 seasons as a head baseball coach at one university. 1,398 victories, which puts him in the top 10 going into 2024 of all active head baseball coaches. He's in the top 15 of overall wins. 36 All-Americans, 21 MLB players, and I'm sure that number will go up. 21 conference titles. Over 140 players have signed professional contracts after playing under this man. He took Missouri State to the 2003 College World Series, 2 super regional appearances. Obviously, I'm talking about the legend Keith Guttin, 42 seasons as head baseball coach at Missouri State. Coach Guttin's a dear friend of mine, close mentor. I had the honor and privilege, I followed Missouri State baseball growing up, going to games at Price Cutter Park with my dad. Later, we'd go to, they'd make the move over to Hammonds Field in 2004. And I remember growing up in that 2003 team very, very well. I've become friends with a lot of those guys. Adam Pummel, want to give a special shout out to Dante Brinkley. No, I'm missing a few guys, but want to give a special shout out to those guys. And then I had the honor to coach, asked me to come work with him my junior and senior year, 2014, 2015. So I got to be part of that 2015 super regional run. I words can't describe, and I'm sure we're going to reminisce a lot about that team in particular. That team was the most successful team win-wise in 42 seasons. And I think, I don't want to put words in coach's mouth, but I think he would say the chemistry was one of the biggest aspects of that team. Helped too that we had 2 future first-round draft picks and John Harris and Jake Berger. Jake currently plays for the Marlins now. We had Matt Hall, who would pitch for Detroit and the Boston Red Sox. And I think he's trying to make a comeback overseas. I think I saw that on Facebook. We had Tate Matheny, who, even though Tate, obviously I'm talking about Mike Matheny's son, that was kind of cool having a major league. At the time, Tate's dad was managing the Cardinals. He'd later go on to manage the Royals. But that was kind of cool at the time to have a teammate that, his dad managed a major league team at the time. But I'll tell you this about Tate Matheny. He never made it to the MLB. He made it up to AAA, and then him and his wife started a family, retired. He's back in the St. Louis area now. The one thing I think about Tate was, yes, his name carried a lot of weight, but he commanded the respect of everybody in that locker room. And it was because of his character and how he conducted himself. I never saw Tate treat anybody differently than anybody else, and he didn't walk around like, my dad's the manager of the Cardinals. And that says a lot about who he is and his character. So he really, I would say, and I'm leaving guys out, Eric Charest, Joey Hawkins, obviously. He's now the head coach. Every person on that team was picked for a reason. They had something special. I could go down the list. Eric was a leader by nature. He didn't have to say anything. He just carried himself, conducted himself, and played. And you watched him and you said, I want to play like that guy, or I want to be like that guy. Joey was the same way. Joey led by words, but he also proved it through his actions in terms of, just the way he played. So I know I'm talking a lot about that 2015 team, but, the architect of that team and many, many successful teams is my next guest. So I'm honored to have on Coach Keith Guttin. Coach Guttin, thanks for being on. Really appreciate you taking time to do this, and glad we finally get to catch up, and hope retirement is treating you very, very well.
Well, I've got a lot more time now, Tyler, to talk, that's for sure. And officially, I'm 21 days in and all is well.
Good to hear. And so I guess talk to me a little bit. Obviously, I've known you a long time and, followed you and Missouri State. So I guess let's just start out like how, you've been retired about 3 weeks now, but what's that been like? And then what's kind of just what's been able to, or you've been able to kind of, I guess, look back on your 42 years. What's that been like, kind of reflecting?
Well, I haven't really reflected that much. It kind of comes and goes. You think about things and you think about the people, but really, when you're done, what you have left are the relationships and the memories. All the championships and big wins are important, but that's really what you're left with. I still go down to the stadium. I'm helping the new staff transition to some degree. I feel like, we're going to stay in Springfield, my wife and I, even though our kids are spread out a little bit, and I like to stay around fairly close to the program and help when I can.
For sure. And talk to me a little bit about, you said just reflecting, or you haven't had much time to reflect, but you're still going down to the stadium. What's that? Has it been different, or is it still, I mean, you were what, you suited up in a uniform, counting high school and all that, what, 57 years or something like that?
Well, you added 3, but so
Sorry.
I guess from the time I started to play in high school, I've had a uniform every spring for 54 years. So, that may be a little different next spring, but I'll be at the games. I'll just have a different seat. And if it gets really cold, I'll just go sit in the suite.
Yeah, for sure. So I have to tell you too. So I was texting Brent Kimnitz earlier. Obviously, Brent and I have had quite. He's been a mentor of mine, and I was listening to one of your podcasts you did. I think it was either with Scott Perrier or I can't remember if her name was Julie or Judy. But you mentioned how you got thrown out of a game and went into the locker room there at Wichita State and got yourself locked in to the locker room. And I was texting him about that.
I think the players locked me and they didn't want me to come back out. But I do recall that. And obviously, Brent was a great pitching coach at Wichita. We were in the league with them for several years, a great rivalry, and a lot of respect for that program.
Yeah, for sure. And he speaks very highly. I mean, he said, please make sure to tell Keith, or I'll call you Coach Guttin, but Coach, my regards. Great. I mean, obviously the rivalries there, the wanting to win games is there, but you respect your opponents. And I think too, I look at Indiana State, a program that just kind of came out of nowhere the last couple of years, and just the respect that goes around the Valley. And now with Missouri State transitioning to Conference USA, as a fan, as a former alum, I'm going to miss those, but you respect your opponents because of what the Valley's meant to the program.
Well, we got in, as you know, Tyler, in 1991. So I was in a different league, the Mid-Con, from 84 to 91. But, I feel like I'm kind of a Valley guy, and, I won't make it to Conference USA. That'll be Coach Hawkins. But, when you talk about opponents, when you're a young coach, at first you don't like your opponents. It's pretty clear. Right. Then you begin to respect your opponents and see what they do and accomplish. Then toward the end, and when you get out, you really kind of develop friendships with those people based on that competition. So kind of runs the gamut.
Yep. And just kind of reminiscing here, obviously, you've known me a long time, and I've moved around, and kind of, it brought a smile to my face when you and I were texting the other day, and you agreed. We've been trying to do this for a while, and I just hadn't gone back into podcasting, but very honored to have you on. And Springfield, Missouri State is special to me. It's special to my brother. You and the family, the baseball family, have been great to my family. Jeremy still talks about being bat boy. Now he's going to be a junior at Missouri State, and it's just a special place, and I talk about it all the time. So I kind of want to go back. The College World Series year. I was in elementary school, and I watched. I've got to know those guys. Adam Pummel. I texted Pums today, and I said I got to give you a shout out. Dante Brinkley. Obviously, I'm missing some guys, but that's kind of what got me started. And then when you asked me my sophomore year, like, hey, would you want to help out? Like, that meant a lot to me, and like just reflecting that being a part of 2015, like it's incredible, and I can't believe it's been 9 years. But I mean, I guess you talk to me about kind of everything over the last 42 years, including those two moments. Like, what stands out the most?
Well, we're going to have a 10-year reunion next year. I can tell you that. So get your plane ticket ready.
Good. Okay, I got it.
We'll do that probably late January for the 2015. We look forward to that. But again, certainly high spots, big wins on the field, but really more than anything, the people that made the commitment, made the sacrifices, did a lot of the hard work. Of course, Bill Rowe, Tyler, as you know and respect, and I do a great deal, gave me the opportunity to come here as a player initially out of junior college, played 2 years from him, and was his assistant for 3.5 years before leaving for a semester, going to coach in junior college with my buddy Kirk Champion. Came back, in the fall of '82, kind of a unique hiring process back then, since there were no federal laws. I was living in Mount Vernon, Illinois, coaching at Ren Lake Junior College. It was the summer. I was going around recruiting. Kirk and I were, but my sources of income, I was the weekend security guard at the junior college. No gun. I worked at a clothing store, and I worked at a liquor warehouse. So I'd say mid to late July of '82, I get a phone call on the house phone, and it's none of us are married at the time. It's Coach Rowe. Hey, looks like Coach Sieben is going to retire, our AD at the time. And Coach Rowe was more or less assistant AD, business manager. He was going to be moved up, and he wanted to bring me back as head coach. Well, it sounded a lot better than the weekend security guard gig with the clothing sales and the liquor warehouse. I said, all right, cool, I'm in. And he goes, well, I'll get back to you. So now the week before school begins, again, no cell phones, catches me on the phone. Kirk and I at the time were in Mount Vernon, Illinois, living in a house with a married couple who we knew. He had played at Missouri State. She was pregnant, and they had a cat, and we had bunk beds. So this is 1982, and living arrangements weren't perfect. So he calls me a week before. I said, Coach Sieben retired. I'm the AD. You're the coach. So the hiring laws back then were much different than they are now, shall we say. So that was a Thursday. School was starting Monday. So I got in my Datsun 280Z. I had no furniture, put my clothes in the back, headed for Springfield. Of course, I'd been there before, and found a place to live on Saturday. School started Monday. And that was the fall of '82. Then I retired July 1 of 2024.
Yeah, and that's it's just I was talking to. We'll talk more about this, but I was talking to former Cubs GM Ed Lynch, who pitched for the Mets on that '86 World Series team. Pitched for the Cubs. Very close with him, and just how times have changed since the '80s. And he said, I was playing for New York, and he was telling me that him and Wally Backman were sharing a motel room in Queens, before the season opened, and somebody broke into the motel. And, I just think about that, where guys weren't making a lot of money. And so when you mentioned like throwing the clothes in the back of the car, coming to Springfield, it's like nowadays, I don't feel like that would happen. And we can get into the NIL and all that, and how money, baseball and not just baseball, but sports has turned into a corporation. But do you feel, Coach, and not trying to put you on the spot, like college sports or just sports in general have become more corporate America? And was it always that way? It just we didn't see in that limelight, or what? What's your take on that?
I don't think it was always that way, and I think it's changed significantly, particularly the last 5 years with the advent of the legalization of the NIL. I think where we're headed, Tyler, is professional franchises on college campuses
Mm-hmm.
Not all, but the ones that can do it with no salary caps. So players are free agents now with the transfer portal in effect. They can go every year, not just once. So you could go to the highest bidder 4 different times throughout your college career playing a sport. And, it's initially, it usually starts with football, basketball, but it's certainly very visible in Division I baseball at this time as well.
Yeah, and I see, I see that, coach, with the NIL and all that, and I've got my thoughts on it. I'd rather, keep them, but you could probably figure out where I stand. The other thing too is I was talking to Ed about, and he didn't mind. I text him. He didn't mind me saying this, but him and I were talking the other day about just all the rule changes, and quite frankly, if you want my honest opinion, there's a lot of BS going on in the game, with this analytics, and you got to have some of it. But I feel like, and Ed and I were talking about this, there's more arm injuries now with, pitchers aren't trained to go 7 to 9 innings. They're trained to, throw hard all the time, pitch 3, maybe 4 innings, and then they're done. And so, I think about a school like Missouri State where you might not be able to carry 40 players. You might be only, able to carry 30. And then just that, the wear and tear on the arms. So I guess, what's your opinion, or if you don't mind me asking, what, do you see that prevalent at the college level? I see it at the pro level with more pitchers on the disabled list now than ever before.
Well, I think the part about airing it out and only being able to go 3 to 4 innings is very prevalent at the college level. And I trace it back, Tyler, to youth baseball, not to put all the blame on them, but when most guys are getting 12-month training, they're going indoors, and they're trying to just, for the most part, increase velocity, because velocity sells. It sells in the draft. It sells in the youth baseball because parents want to pay for their kid to throw 3 miles an hour harder. So they go train for 12 months. Well, you might be able to throw 3 miles an hour harder all of a sudden, but you're not going to do it for a long period of time. So we have a quality start anymore for me. If a guy goes 5 innings out of 9, that's rare, and you're pretty glad that he did. It's trickled down without any question. And along with that, the arm injuries have as well.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, I don't know if there's a different system, coach. I'm sure you and I could have many conversations about, but like I said, I'm not anti-analytics. I don't want to be one of those guys. I took a class on baseball analytics, and I think there's some, but I wasn't a coach as long as you were, but I feel like you have to go with your gut instinct. There's some days where it's just like, a computer's not going to tell me if a guy just broke up with his girlfriend or is sick or whatever. I just feel like there's sometimes you have to go with your gut.
Well, I would say in the future, you might have a computer that tells you those things. But
Yeah.
I would say this. I'm forgetting all the information that I can get beforehand and during the game that will help me. And then I'll make that decision based on that information and what I have seen coaching in about 2,000 games. And I'll put those together. And I would tell you, my opinion is the best guys that I have been around in the game are smart. They like information, but at some point in their career, they had a uniform on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I think back to Moneyball where, Billy Bean was, it was, name me a GM that played and all that. Ed played, and then he was GM, but he wasn't part of Moneyball. And I don't want to say it's funny how the game's transpired. It's just technology has come a long ways with it. And I think back, I say all this to say, I remember when you called me and you said, hey, I heard you were interested in working with baseball, and you hired me to be our first video coordinator. And I was so honored. To this day, I still talk about that. I've got my uniform that you all gave me hanging up in my bedroom, right by my bed. And then if I could have taken that position and known then what I knew now, it would have been a totally different, I don't want to say position, but totally different stance I would have taken on things. But it's just how everything's evolved. It's amazing. And that small time, 10 years, you know?
We've got a video and data guy now, and we've had one for a few years now. They're not paid full time. They're young
Right.
guys that want to grow in the sport, maybe eventually get into professional baseball in that regard. But it's certainly been a big help in helping our coaches prepare for team meetings. And, every player's different, Tyler. You got to give them what they want. They may not want much at all. They may want a lot. They may not want any contact before they go to their at bat. They may want everything you have. So we put it on in the dugout on the board. We have a coach at the end of the dugout. And whatever that guy wants, we give him, but we try not to overload him.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to go back to Coach to talking about, obviously I'm reminiscing here and hope you don't mind, but that 2015 team was, I was there in 2014. That was my first year. And I'll never forget, we come back, I believe conference tournament was at Indiana State that year. And I think we finished 26-42. Don't quote me. It was somewhere in there. I know we had 26, 27.
Couldn't have played that many games, but it wasn't a good year.
Yeah, and we got back to the locker room and had the team meeting at like 2 a.m. And then you said, this is not the Missouri State way. There's going to be changes coming, and there were. And then the next year, 2015 happens. And I was reflecting today. I thought, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like if I could reflect on one thing from that team that stuck out, it was the chemistry. I felt like it was different than 2014, but like I felt like, we had it helped. We had, Jake Berger, Matt Hall, John Harris, Tate Matheny, Joey, obviously, but I felt like overall the chemistry was what led us. And tell me if you think that was the case, because I felt like that was what kind of started all. There was a different chemistry that year.
Well, I think if you look back, Tyler, a lot of guys in 14 were back in 15. We didn't cut them. They didn't leave, and we struggled. But they grew. They learned from their experiences. We added key pieces. Hall and Harris were there. They were there in 14. The new guys, Jake Berger, Paulson, I'm probably missing somebody, some pitchers, and it all just kind of came together. Nate Thompson kind of took over for the great job that Brent Thomas did. It's just sometimes when you get different people, things click, and it all kind of went together. But, Joey was the leader of that team without any question, and the chemistry was phenomenal. I would tell you that in 42 years of being a head coach, that year, obviously the wins, the championships, but cannot remember one time, honestly, where I had to deal with an off the field issue, whether academic, social, tardiness, players. Not one time. They handled all of that internally, and that was like the Love Boat 2015. Winning 18 in a row didn't hurt, but that was just a really good group that was together. And you look back on your best teams, and there's always that element of togetherness, love, chemistry. And does that come before the wins, or does it come because of the wins? Well, doesn't matter, but they all had that.
Yeah, and I'll never forget, you remember I left the team because I was starting grad school at Loyola, and I felt like absolute crap having to leave, but like I had to start grad school, and it was just part of it. And I'll never forget going up to Chicago, and I told the professor, so drove up, made the 8-hour drive, moved in. I'd been there like a week and a half, and I told the professor, I said, hey, listen, I said, I may have to go back to Springfield. You may not see me for a week. This is what's going on. We're in the regionals. Chance we're probably going to play in the super regionals. If we go to the College World Series, you're not going to see me for a week. And I remember getting out of class. The professor actually cut class early because he knew I had to make the 8-hour drive back to Springfield. Thankfully, the game got rained out the next day, so I got some sleep. But I made it back to Chicago, or from Chicago. It's an 8-hour drive. I made it back in about 6.5 hours. So not going to tell you the speed I was going, but just to be there. And, I just want to be part of that. And like I said, reflecting on those. And, came within one win of the College World Series, but I think about all those memories. That's what sticks out to me. Yeah, it would have been great to go to the College World Series, but the fact that, won the regional in Springfield, we had to go to Arkansas, which, is Springfield regional, but it's just, that's some special for that to happen. So I'm just so proud of that team.
Well, again, I would tell you, and people sometimes will ask me this question: what's the most rewarding thing or the best thing that's happened while you were there? And most people would think the College World Series. And I would
Yeah.
tell you personally, it was hosting and winning the regional in Springfield, Missouri at Hammons Field with all our fan base, all our families, all our friends, our students. That was the most exciting memory that I have from my time at Missouri State.
And that's great to hear. It's, like I said, for me, Springfield, I moved around a lot, but Springfield carries special. I grew up in Willard, and that team in particular special. The '03 team to me, like I said, I've become friends with a lot of those guys. It's that baseball program has gotten me to where I am today. Wouldn't have worked for all the pro teams I have without it. And, I think that's what I carry with me. So to hear that coming from you is, the fact that I just had I wasn't a player. I was I was a video guy of 2015 whoop-de-doo, but like just to be asked and to have a small 1% hand in that is something I'll carry with me forever.
It's interesting. We've had numerous guys over the years that were non-uniform personnel and managers, video guys, data, student managers, whatever. And those guys are some of the most loyal guys that the program has had. And I have guys managers from the 80s that stay in touch with me. So, again, it's when you're done, it's memories and relationships.
Yeah, and I think back to when my dad used to take me to games. We moved to Willard in 2001 from Hollister, so not that far away, but still, coming up, and they used to give out tickets to like for the Thursday or Friday, Saturday games. Like free. Child gets in free with a parent. And my dad, that's what we did on weekends. Was I look forward to going to Missouri State. So 01, 02, 03, and I remember that '02 team in particular. I was a huge fan, all those guys, but Bob Zimmerman in particular, because he pitched for Team USA, and then Dante Brinkley, who I've said this publicly, he was my favorite Bear of all time, and then just to see those guys, and then obviously there's the Ryan Howard, the Ross Detweilers as we go into the mid 2000s, but it's just you see all these guys. I mean, you had 140 guys roughly sign professional contracts. Not all of them, obviously. I think there was 21 that made it to the majors, but still to have that many players come through, there's something to be said for that. And it's one of those things where, like, as a kid, it's like, yeah, I remember the Jeremy Eisenhowers, or Tony Piazza, those, and then to be a part of the program was just something where it's looking back. It's like, had you told me back then, I would have been a part of it. Now on a podcast with you, I would have said you're nuts, So like that's how special, and that's what I feel as a coach, having been a coach. That's what I feel is the most special, seeing people who come through and are loyal, remembering where they came from. So I hope that resonates in the fact that that's how much it means to me.
Well, I would say that starting with number one, those guys made themselves better players through their work. We were smart enough to recruit the right type of people, blue collar type people. And, I have never tried to take credit or will I on anybody becoming a major leaguer. That was their work. If we want any credit, it would be for choosing to surround ourselves with the right people, both players, staff, other coaches. I think we've been fortunate. We've had a lot of that help, but it's nice when guys stay in touch. I think that means a lot. It means they had a good experience. You were talking about Bob Zimmerman. He was a great leader, a unique character, brought the snake to Omaha,
Yeah,
the whole
Omaha.
bit. And, you never forget those kinds of things.
Yeah, and going back to 2015 too. So I remember, and I hate to bring this up, but I have to because I want a good laugh and I think about it all the time. I was texting you yesterday, walking through New York, and there's taxi cab drivers who they don't know what a pedestrian walkway means, and so I kind of have to yell a couple things and get my point across. So I do want to ask, how many ejections have you had in your career? I just have to ask because
I've been asked that a few times this summer, and my typical answer is more than one because I really don't know. And it's not something I counted. And I can tell you that I never went out there to be ejected. Never, not once. People always talking about, you're trying to fire up your team. Never entered my mind. I said what I had to say. I did what I had to do. And if I got ejected, I got ejected, and I rolled with it.
Yeah, and that was the 2 years I worked with you. That was the thing. You got ejected once at Indiana State. I was standing right there, and you came out and said what
you probably said something, and I got ejected for it.
Yeah. Well, hey, I play hockey now, so there may be a few things you taught me, or I may have brought upon myself that I've said to some referees, but. No, you were so, and even Lump, I would try to get a rise out of Lump just to get it, because that's but you got ejected, I think, once my first year at Indiana State. I was standing right there, and you came out, said your piece. I won't repeat it. But then you were done. And then I think my second year, maybe against Mizzou, but it wasn't a prevalent thing. Like I said, in 2 years, I think maybe twice, 3 times, so it's not. It was just kind of funny at the time, Like I said, I tried to get a rise. I remember one bus ride when we played at UT Martin, and the umpire had a really, really bad game, and I was trying my darnest to get a rise out about both you and Lump, and even Coach Thomas, of all people. I was trying to get a rise, and you guys weren't having it,
Well, I will tell you that you talked about rules changes, and now, obviously, you cannot say anything about balls and strikes.
Yeah.
You cannot go into fair territory to have a discussion with an umpire, and you cannot go in the dirt area around home plate to have a discussion with an umpire. And one of the best things that has come about in college baseball, certainly at our level, is replay. And that has solved a lot of arguments, embarrassments, ejections, and I think it's been great for the game.
Good to hear. I want to ask too, as you're kind of handing off, you've handed off the program to Joey, who he has my utmost, endorsement, support for the program. Obviously he's ready to take the program over. For me, it's about loyalty, and no one's been more loyal to Springfield, Missouri State than Joey in terms of, where he's at in his career. But what do you see overall in Joey, and where do you think the program's headed from here?
I think it's going to go great places with him. When he left here, Tyler, he signed. He went played in the Cardinals organization. I don't know, maybe 2.5 years. And he's kind of an organizational guy. He'll tell you that as well. He's a 40th round pick when there were 40 rounds, and was already, I think, had the sense, and they did too, that he was going to coach. So as soon as he was cut, they hired him to coach, literally right after. So he had great coaching training within that organization. Obviously Major League Baseball has the best instructors in the world, and he was around that, was a hitting coach for a couple years. So he's totally prepared in that regard. Now he came back, he's been here 3 years, turned over the recruiting coordinator job to him. So he's recruited, he's worked with infielders, worked with hitters. He's done everything in some part that a head coach does: handle the budget, deal with administration, deal with injuries, deal with parents. So he's had great experience. He's young, so he's got high energy, but he's got enough experience where he really understands how to teach and motivate players.
Yeah, and I just listening to his podcast, him and I send a text every now and then, just checking in, and just I think back, like I said, I can't believe it's going to be almost 10 years since I was last with the program. And I just hear the maturity and I really think the program's in good hands. And I'm excited for the future. Obviously, what you and your staffs have done is remarkable and something I'll cherish forever. Like I said, I think about you all every day, but it's one of those where it's, knowing the program's in good hands moving forward, that's, I feel like it's going to just continue.
Well, we're on our third head coach in 60 years. So
Yep.
you know who my mentor was, Bill Rowe.
Yep.
Got a good relationship with him. So you know who taught me how to basically deal with people, which is the most important thing that we do. The people skills, the work ethic, the knowledge, that's what Bill Rowe showed me. And hopefully I rubbed off on Joey a little bit.
Absolutely, you did. Absolutely. And I do want to ask real quick, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm just kind of reflecting now on, thinking back and Price Cutter Park, the program was at Metter. I don't think I ever went to a game at Metter. I'd been there a few times, obviously with the mall being right next door, seeing it. Actually, I think I played football there one time, which if you can imagine me playing football, that's a sight to see. But, and then, going to games at Price Cutter and then Hammond's Field. And now they're talking about upgrades to Hammond's Field. And 10 years ago, had you told me upgrades to Hammond's Field, but I guess it's just kind of where the program's played, where they're at now. And now they're talking about upgrades at Hammond's Field. Like, what's your take on that? And just, would you say an on-campus stadium at some point is in the future? Or do you think Hammond's Field's there permanently for Missouri State?
I would say Hammond's Field. The reason, twofold. I don't think there's room on campus, Tyler. Excuse me. I don't think there's room on campus. And I think we're pretty locked in there. We have the amenities. We have the Bill Rowe Indoor Training Facility. We have our clubhouse, our locker room. Everything that we financed, renovated, fixed up, our weight room, training room, equipment room, all those things. We just got done with another renovation. It's a great place to play. It's close to campus. It's award-winning surface. There's a lot of pluses there. Now, the city now owns the field, okay? So Mr. Hammonds built it, was the owner of it for years. He passed away. The city purchased the field from the second owner. So that's been a plus, and that's where I think the monies are coming for the renovation. The Cardinals did own the AA franchise, but they've sold that to a private business. But we've got a long-term contract there, and it's a great place to play.
Yeah, for sure. And I think back to, sharing with the Cardinals, and they were always, in my opinion, always very accommodating. Always, obviously there was the super regional deal, which, people don't know that the Cardinals were all for us hosting the super regional. From what I understand, it was some other entities that weren't, but that's why we had to go to Arkansas and play the Springfield Regional. But great facility in my opinion. I just always thought, what could it have been if the area where the soccer field is now on campus. That's where when I was there, that's where I always thought they'd put a baseball stadium. It's right there. But again, you got to think about parking too. So I would agree with you in that regard. But just some I thought about. So.
Well, the university didn't build the stadium, nor did they pay for the stadium. $30 million at the time. John Q. Hammonds did that, and he felt like he wanted to help continue to renovate downtown and make it even livelier. And it's, you're close to downtown, certainly have more than adequate parking there. There's a park nearby, and, he was able to purchase all the existing buildings there. This was a very long process that Bill Rowe and him had been discussing for years. I went on flights to Ole Miss, to Auburn. Coach Rowe went on other various flights on Mr. Hammond's plane to check out
the mule, right?
And this was years in the making, and to come to fruition and allow us to play there, and then to host conference tournaments and host the regional. It's just been a joy.
For sure, for sure. Last question, Coach, and I'll let you go. And like I said, I appreciate your time. If there's one thing looking back on your career, I know we talked about 2015 and that team and all that, But if there's one thing in your career that stands out the most, what would that be?
Hosting and winning that regional,
For
without a
sure.
doubt.
For
Without a
sure.
doubt. Just for all the people that started the program in '64, all that played in there, all that were on staff, were people like you, to get to enjoy that at home in your own stadium with your own family, friends, supporters, donors. That to me was the highlight.
For sure. Well, and like I said, I just, my family, like I said, Jeremy still talks about you and the whole staff and that experience. I stay in touch with Tate Matheny and Eric Charay, and I mean, we're like brothers, and we've all kind of gone our separate way. I remember Dylan Becker. I was working for the White Sox at the time, and Dylan had played a game at King County, and he took the train in after a game, and he's tired. He probably just wants to go to the hotel, relax. But he took the train from Geneva, Illinois, which is about 40 minutes outside of downtown Chicago, to come to the White Sox game just to see me. And he didn't have to do that. That's just the kind of people that you and the staff brought around, myself. And I'm very fortunate and just want to publicly say thank you, because you didn't have to give me that opportunity. And I'm so Missouri State baseball that I wouldn't be where I am without it. So as you're my mentor, friend, former coach, but thank you for all that. And you don't know how much that program means to me and a lot of people.
Well, again, Tyler, at the end, when you're done with it, you look back, you've got the memories that you and I just talked about and the relationships that don't go away. And, that's the thing. You get more out of that really than the wins.
For sure. Well, I appreciate it, Coach. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully can have you on maybe at some point during the season next year. And next time I'm in Springfield, I'm going to let you know, and we'll definitely meet up. And please tell the family hello. I know you've got some grandkids. You've got another one on the way, correct?
That's correct. About Christmas time, our
awesome.
First granddaughter. So.
So it is going to be a dog, because you've got it's all boys as grandkids to this point, correct?
That is 2 boys, and now we'll have a girl. So we're excited either way, but doubly excited.
Awesome. Well, Coach, please tell the family hello. Thank you so much for your time. And again, go Bears, and congrats again on a remarkable, unprecedented 42 years.
Good to be with you, Tyler. Stay well. Take care.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. Bye.